This week's iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com and Netflix.com.
This week in iFanboy, we're talking funny books. What's with Spider-Man? He's always carrying around a cell phone, wallet, skin-tight costume. Where's he keeping that thing? I can't see it. And doesn't anybody notice that Bruce Banner is always wearing giant purple ripped pants? You'd think that'd be a clue right... Hello? It's not even plugged in.
Welcome to iFanboy, the video podcast from the comic book discussion website, iFanboy.com. I'm Connor.
I'm Ron.
And I'm Josh. This week, we are going to talk about funny books. Not funny books like comics, but actual funny comics.
Well, see, if you look at the word comic, it more often means funny.
Very often not funny, though.
No, in the comic book format, it's not that funny. We've gotten away from the funny. We want to bring back the funny.
But there's a whole lot of books out there. When we were preparing for the show, I was like, well, what am I going to... And then we had way too many choices. Tons of stuff. So let's get going.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
The very first thing that I thought of when we started doing this was Brian Bendis' Fortune and Glory.
There's a surprise.
Which is so good.
It is good. It's really good.
I reread it again for the first time since I'd originally read it long, long ago when it came out.
Well, what is it?
It's a story of Bendis' experiences in Hollywood with his indie properties. It's funny because at the beginning of it, he's like, I'm an alternative comics artist. And I was like, no, you're not anymore.
Yeah, it came out like late 90s. Right?
Yeah, and basically he had done Jinx and Goldfish, and those were getting shopped around to
Torso
everybody.
also.
Torso comes up in the middle of the book.
Yeah.
He actually starts it, and then he pitches it before they work on it. Basically, they fly him out to Hollywood a couple of times. He meets his agent. He goes to meetings with producers, and it's really funny. Yeah. Furthermore than that, like you read the pages, and he was good. I mean, like he laid out a comic book page, and you see why he's become the writer that he has.
Yeah.
These are great pages. It's almost like they've got a ton of energy in them. But at the same time, if you were to just read it in essay forms outside of the word balloons and everything, it would read just as well. Like he tells funny stories. And
he's got a lot of great. He's a great storyteller.
It's kind of gotten buried in his au revoir or in his kind of repertoire. It's kind of gotten kind of buried. It was put up by Oni. It's 8 years old now at this point. I wonder if a lot of the Bendis fans who know him from Ultimate Spider-Man or New Avengers or whatever actually know it even exists.
They should.
Yeah.
If nothing else, it's a really good primer on like the Hollywood world.
Yeah, totally.
The interesting world of development hell and
the
things
pitfalls
like that.
of going to Hollywood with your art.
And he talks about having a sequel, but who knows if that'll ever happen.
No.
But you don't think it ever will? Or?
I don't know.
I mean, because he's got 8 years of stories.
Well, what happened was, when you're reading this, you're placing it in his world where he hadn't started working for Marvel. He hadn't started doing it.
So still struggling.
You get the sense from this that he's going to start writing movies from that.
Yeah.
And what happened was, all of a sudden, he became the biggest Marvel writer ever, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because a big word.
He's not in this.
What do you mean?
Like
he's not the Marvel writer.
It's so funny because what he's become is so different from where this seems that he's going.
Yeah.
You really got the idea that he was hoping that would hit, that would be the way he made his fortune and glory, like from these movies, and it's interesting.
Well, he's a movie. He's a movie buff. He's crazy for movies. He's still actively trying to get Powers and Jinx made into films. He really wants to make. I mean, why not?
They're never going to happen.
I think
I know. It's been so long. It's been since Goldfish 10 years.
But think about how long it took 300 to get to the screen. 300 got optioned in 96, 97.
Gangs of New York.
Yeah, exactly.
That was in progress for years and years and years. The cartooning is really, really simple. It's awesome, and he's a hero of mine.
Yeah.
There it is. That was such an ass kiss, but it's true. Like I really, really, really dug that book. That is a great book for anybody who reads comics or otherwise.
And he also did Total Sellout, which is a little more just kind of short, small.
It's not all funny, but there are a lot of funny bits. It's in the same vein of Fortune and Glory.
Hey, it's wacky time!
It's humor time!
Was that mine?
I did
All of your humor is based in late 50s TV shows.
It's going to be a lot of laughing. All right, so what's next on the stack?
Next up is another favorite of mine, Milk and Cheese by Evan Dorkin. And if you grow up with the name Dorkin, it comes out later. They're paying for that one. Milk and Cheese is pretty much a precursor to the Moon and Knights. as I was reading this, which is interesting because Evan Dorkin went from doing these comics to then working at Cartoon Network on Space Ghost for a while. Yeah. And like there's a line between
the Mooninites.
The Mooninites are the Scourge of Boston.
Oh, that's the Falcon. Yeah, I don't know.
From Aqua Teen Hunger Force. They're the two little angry aliens, basically. It's not the exact same thing, but it's in that family. Basically, Milk and Cheese are these indestructible wad of cheese and a carton of milk, and they live in New York City. And they're little 1- and 2-page mini comics as you go through it, where there'll be some sort of social thing that they're talking about, like Milk and Cheese go to the mall, and all of the pages are just chock full of energy. They've got the motion lines coming off them like Japanese comics, and there's stuff exploding and things like that. And Milk and Cheese are always smiling and happy about whatever their destruction that they're doing is, and they're drunk and horrible
and like angry too, right?
But
and Dorkin's got a lot of anger in him.
Oh,
like if you ever hear him talk and hear him like kind of talk about Milk and Cheese and all this stuff, and he lives in New York and was like very, and
well they're done. They were done in the late '80s, early '90s, and a lot of the consumerism and stuff. Like it's one of the things that he's railing against. And like in Milk and Cheese go to the mall. Like they go to Spencer Gifts and Cheese is yelling at the guy at Spencer. He's, "Where's my gift?" And Milk is going, "Where is his gift?" And he's like, they're threatening him with it. And like Milk and Cheese take on hippies, and like one of them starts to sing "If I Have a Hammer," and then Cheese in the back goes, "Wait, I have a hammer," and they just start hammering everybody and hitting them. And like it's really funny.
Yeah.
And I had read it the first time and I loved it, and I came back and I loved it like even more. And the whole thing, the energy's good the whole way through. There's one other one where the Milk and Cheese take on like the war on drugs, and the reason that they decided to do it is that they're watching TV and they're sick of anti-drug commercials. So they figure the way that they can get their TV back is to end drugs. So they go find like crack dealer and like, "Are you a crack dealer?" He's like, "Wait, shh, no, you sell crack," and then they beat him up and they beat up people and do things. It's kind of the theme, but it's awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And Evan Dorkin and Sarah Dyer wrote some great stuff for Space Ghost in the late '90s. And was he working on Aqua Teen Hunger Force, or has he still been working on the Cartoon Network?
He doesn't work on Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Oh, okay.
He did work on Space Ghost.
Yeah, that was years ago. But good stuff. And actually, Milk and Cheese reminded me of this book that recently came out called Tales Designed to Thrizzle. Which the title kind of made me, but it's a bunch of 1, 2, 3 page, kind of a cross between Milk and Cheese, a cross between 8-Ball. Daniel Close's 8-Ball. Very kind of simple black and white. A lot of preying upon comic book kind of genres and stereotypes and stuff like that. And there's a whole section of like coloring books for adults, like the Horny Strangers coloring book. And so like such as wacky. It's a little more adult, not for the kids, but it's a more recent one that made me laugh. So, yeah.
Well, we would be remiss talking about humor books if we didn't bring up Kyle Baker, who's like kind of the elder statesman of funny comics.
He's like a preeminent graphic novelist, humorist guy. And
he's been around for a long time doing funny graphic novels that before most people did that stuff. And two books we've got are Why I Hate Saturn and The Cowboy Wally Show, which are really funny. You should. You've got an interesting story about Why I Hate Saturn.
I bought Why I Hate Saturn a long time ago. I'd originally bought a book. I forget what it was called. It was just a mini prestige that he had done, and I loved it. Something about the millennium changing over. I don't remember the name.
Yes.
And I loved it. It was a short thing, though, and so I went and I bought 2 more of his books right away, and I bought Why I Hate Saturn. And
That's one of his big ones. This is one of his
Yeah. It came out in 1990. I didn't really like it all that much. And I came back preparing for the show, and I went to reread it again, and I really enjoyed it a lot more than I did the first time.
Because you're older, do you think? Or?
There was a difference between 23-year-old me and 30-year-old me.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a story of a woman who is a writer in New York, and she's railing against living in New York in the late 80s, early 90s a little bit, and then her sister comes back and she's crazy. But she's like
it was a bad place.
She's like a hard drinker, columnist type, and all sorts of wacky shit happens. It's all done in sepia tone, oddly enough.
I saw that.
And like there's not word balloons. It's almost like a little movie with storyboards and then the dialogue underneath it. So he plays with the genre a little bit.
Cool.
Cowboy Wally's a wacky tale of Cowboy Wally, who's this guy. He's got this great life. He goes in the French Foreign Legion. He becomes a businessman. He's a movie mogul. So it's like this whole wacky tale. But one thing that most impressed me about the book is Kyle Baker's a really good artist.
Yeah,
on top of being really funny and a good writer, like he can really, really draw.
And the style of that is completely different than the style of the other books.
He changes up, and he's like a huge talent that not enough people, I think, respect.
He works in animation too, I believe.
Yeah.
So he does.
Yeah, you can tell too. Yeah.
But you always see him at the con. So if you're at a con, he's
he's
always
very friendly. He's really he's super got to go visit.
He's really intelligent.
He's big. If you're looking for funny books, Kyle Baker's Like,
Although
way
right
to
now
go.
he's working on Nat Turner, which is biographical
Right.
book, which is not.
Well, it just shows he's probably really good at that too. I'm sure
He's prolific. I'm
very
just-
good at his
He
craft.
keeps working.
Yeah.
which is
Good
good
stuff.
Which is good. Pays the bills.
And now, Connor?
These have all been independent-minded books. One thing you really don't get often is funny superhero books.
Yeah.
I mean, you do every now and then, but like, really, one out
There'll
of
be
one
moments
yeah.
of humor. It's not really a theme as humor.
Right.
You know.
Whereas Keith Giffen, James E. Matias, and Kevin McGuire's Justice League book from the 1980s was a flat-out humor book.
Can you imagine them doing that?
I know. They took the biggest superhero team with some of the biggest characters, Batman, Captain Marvel,
Yeah.
and made it a flat-out comedy series. Like, it's like a sitcom involving Justice League.
And it's genius. It's hysterical. I mean, like I read it recently in the past couple of years. Connor
It's still funny.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like sitting there cracking up reading it. Yeah.
I mean,
We're
you
doing-
came late to the game, and were you surprised when you read it because it is Justice League?
Well, it is Justice League, and I remember having this when I was really young, and I just started reading comics, and I didn't get it, really, because I didn't know anything about the characters and whatever, and I think it was just a little bit over my head, and coming back in later, like, basically it's a sitcom cast, where they're like, Batman is the father figure
Yep.
who's the authoritarian, and then Guy Gardner is the bratty kid.
The jock kid,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's just
Beetle, Booster
silly,
Gold,
but it's
yeah.
really funny. And one of the things that
It's
it
almost
does,
all dialogue-based.
yeah,
Oh yeah, there's hardly any action.
But
Like, there's
it-
hardly
but
any
it-
fighting or anything.
it really, really depends on Maguire's art and his faces and the subtle facial expressions and things like that to get across the points of humor, which we've taken the fun out. Right?
And that was the thing. So much of this about was within Kevin McGuire's art, and the subtle touches, like the reactions and the
Reaction
things
shots,
and the facial expressions and stuff like that other really artists weren't doing at the time. They were just kind of portraying the action and moving the story along.
He put a premium on the faces of the
Yeah.
characters, making them all. I mean, if you look at the cover, and all the faces are different. We talk about that guy face in comics.
Yeah.
Where every guy looks the same.
Yeah.
All of his people look different.
You could take their mask off and know who they are.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that, even though it's funny, it is the Justice League, so there are moments of action and drama.
Yeah.
And because it's so funny that when the drama happens, it hits you 3 times as hard because you don't expect it. I remember in the middle of the run, after McGuire had left, Adam Hughes was the artist, and there was
I can see that transition.
he was actually a good transitional artist, but they had a really big fight with Despero, and he ended up killing a bunch of people, and it was really dramatic because it was really funny in the beginning, and at the end, you've got bloody bodies everywhere, and you're just like, wow, that was rough.
Yeah.
But this is a comedy classic.
It's a romp.
Yeah, definitely.
It's literally worth it for the punch alone.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
besides that, everything
the
is
legendary
bonus.
punch.
And unfortunately, this here trade is the only trade paperback that they have for this series, even though
How?
Giffen and DeMatteis wrote the 60 issues.
Really?
They just haven't
They wrote
released
1
it.
through 60.
Yeah.
And there's 6 or 8 in
And then
there.
there was also Justice League Europe, which
Yeah.
they didn't write, but it was the same
International,
vein.
JLI and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Justice League, then Justice League International, then Justice League of America when they split.
Right. Yeah.
But this is the only trade. It's about the first
Wow.
7 issues.
But then also this creative team revisited it in
Yes,
a
there've
couple
been a
of years
couple
ago
of
with
2 miniseries.
formerly known as the Justice League, which was just as funny. Which was
It was funny,
I
but
enjoyed
it's
it.
kind of it was funny and enjoyable, but kind of like a reunion show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah,
like-
it totally was. Yeah.
It's fun to see the cast all together, and there's some entertaining bits, but it's
Puck
not
gets
as
in a fight with somebody.
good as the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
All right. In keeping with guys who you know now, Frank Cho.
Did you know?
I would hope you'd know. Because,
Yeah. Well, no.
Frank Cho got famous for doing Liberty Meadows, which was his comic strip, which was syndicated and
Yep.
just and everything. And he's now doing Mighty Avengers, which is about the farthest sort of you could go. Liberty Meadows is about an animal sanctuary and Brandy, the really hot chick who works there. And it's a comic strip,
Yep.
just straight out, gag a strip kind of thing with wacky animals that. His designs are really funny.
Yeah, he's real. I mean, he's a talented artist. He draws people really well, but he also is a really good cartoonist.
Yeah, well, looking at this and then seeing what he's doing now on Avengers and some of the Marvel work he's doing, he's got crazy range.
He's great, and what I find so hysterical about Liberty Meadows and Cho up to this is Cho had a reputation as a artist who drew good women. As he was one of those,
Yeah.
because Liberty Meadows is assets and those sort of things. But like, there's wacky animals and comedy and stuff like that in here, and it was completely like if you didn't read this and didn't know that, you would think something. You would think more
different.
like a J. Scott Campbell or a who's that other dude that does stuff on I forget the other guy.
The Battle Chasers guy?
Not Adam Hughes. Not Adam Hughes. Because we just talked about him. I don't know. Anyways, one
I
of
need
the
more
DC
context.
Guys. One of the DC. Names
Ballant?
me.
Jim Ballant?
No, not. Oh yeah, maybe Jim Ballant. But it's really interesting to see that he's not that. I mean, that's just one thing. That's the most obvious thing. And then we move to Avengers. It's like, oh, he's gonna draw Wasp and stuff like that. But those issues are good.
The cheesecake in this is for a purpose. Like there's like the vet who works there, and he's completely intimidated by Brandy, and he's like shorter than her, and like it's all done for effect. It's like anything, you know. They take the animals and they make their characteristics exaggerated for the, you know. It's the same thing with the girl who's there.
Yeah.
They're funny though. There's lots. I was reading through them again before the show, and you know they're straight out good funny stuff.
Yeah.
They push the edge a little better than most sort of newspaper comic strips.
Well, sure. Anytime you've got art from Cho and a main character is voluptuous, it's going to be a little more.
Yeah.
It's not Doonesbury.
But there's lots of that stuff out there,
Yeah.
so go get it.
So the last book we want to talk about is one that I wanted to pull out, which is called Scurvy Dogs.
Yar.
Exactly, which in a nutshell, it's a pirate book. It's pirates. It came out a couple of years ago, and what's really funny is that they're pirates, but they're now. And like,
Do they dress and talk like pirates?
Yes, exactly. And at one point,
They have a boat?
they have a boat, and like in the first issue, there's a bunch of kind of little vignettes when they're like telling stories, like the Captain Blackbeard. It's Blackbeard of the historical Blackbeard. He's telling a story of how they killed a bunch of Portuguese lepers, and you realize at the end of the story he's telling it on a date, and the girl says, "I'm half Portuguese." Right? And then he says, "Did I say Portuguese? I meant Dutch," and she goes, "That's the other half." So it's like they just added a gate. That's how it starts.
That's awesome.
And then
And he's got the hat and the
yeah,
beard.
oh yeah, it's great. And then what happens is that you realize that it's in the now, and in the first issue they realize that they can't earn money pirating, so they all get jobs. And so like Blackbeard gets a job in an office.
It's
and,
like that. Is it a Kinko's commercial? There's a pirate in an office. No, he's. I forget.
Yeah. Well, this is the forgetting episode.
Who is the creative team on this? You should.
The creative team is actually Andrew Boyd and Ryan Yount. Not related to Robin Yount of Milwaukee Brewers fame.
What about
but,
Adam Yount?
No. But Adam Beechin wrote the intro to this, and Brian Wood designed the cover, so there's a lot of connections and stuff like that. But it's really funny. There's a whole cast of pirate characters. Jefe, who's the Spaniard, and there's a guy with a hook for an arm.
You gotta have a Spaniard.
Yeah, and there's an ex-Irish boxer, and like and it's just and we find out that Jefe's from the island of Menudo. Just wacky kind of stuff, but it's funny because it's playing with the pirate genre in now and doing a lot of connections. There's a lot of monkeys connections. There's like whole like Mike Nesmith.
Well, that's
comes
that
out
like
there,
that's like that internet comic geek meme of monkeys, pirates, ninjas.
No, the actual
robots.
monkeys.
And
like,
they get into a fight, pirates versus monkeys, and then they go to the Monkey Isle. And
High concept.
Yeah, exactly. But still, it's funny as hell. It's funny as hell. They fight the king of the hobos. So it's just
Hodgman.
yeah, I know before Hodgman.
Whoa.
Yeah. So so it's really really good. So it actually had me laughing like out loud at points. So.
That's great. And that's always good when it happens when you're reading a book. Like, have you ever been on like a plane or a train, and you're reading and you're
I was on the plane and I was like, there was like a 14-year-old girl sitting next to me trying to watch TV, and I was like, ah! Like she kept on looking at me.
And it's
like,
funny because that's like the best feeling in the world when you're reading something and like you can watch TV or you can watch movies, but you're reading something in a comic and it makes you laugh. It's just like so pure and you can go back and read it again and I love that. That's great.
So.
And there's a lot of humor comics out there, and it's one of these things that nobody talks about because everybody's like, well, what explodes?
Right.
Right.
Or like, where's the drama? But like, we like to laugh. We like to have comics make us laugh. So that's good. So.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully you found some stuff here you'd like. I'm gonna pick up Scurvy Dogs.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So check them all out. We'll post up links of where you can find all these books because some of them are kind of hard to find, possibly. So. But in the meantime, the show was brought to you by our lovely sponsors. Our first sponsor is Netflix.
Lovely.
If you enjoy comedy, you can rent comedy DVDs at Netflix. Go to www.netflix.com/iFanboy, and you can sign up for Netflix. You get a free 2-week trial. They have rate plans starting from $4.99 and up. No late fees. Rent DVDs all you want, and enjoy them. So www.netflix.com/iFanboy.
And if you thought, hey, I'm funny, I'm gonna have a funny blog.
Yeah.
How do I get a funny blog?
You need a domain name.
You need a domain name. You go to GoDaddy.com.
You need a site. You need hosting.
You get all that stuff.
Maybe you want to sell
GoDaddy
t-shirts.
will cover the whole spectrum.
Exactly.
And if you go there and you put in coupon code iFanboy, you get 10% off everything you buy. Because
Nothing funny
GoDaddy,
about the discount.
the discount is deadly serious.
But GoDaddy's commercials are funny.
Yes.
They're funny. So
That's true.
So you can go to GoDaddy and you can get your own piece of the internet.
Yes.
Nice.
So
So if you've got a joke about Spider-Man,
And a pirate.
Incredible Hulk, and a pirate walking into a bar,
tell us.
send it along. But if it ends with put it on my bill, we're going to class you as spam.
So,
You can write to contact@ifanboy.com about that or any other damn thing you feel like.
yeah.
If you want to call, maybe send us a joke on the phone.
Yeah. Dial a joke.
Dial a joke. Tell us, give us your little stand-up routine. You can do that at 1-888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697, and leave us a voicemail.
Or you can head on to www.ifanboy.com and check out the discussion about this episode, as well as all the other discussions relating to the comic book world.
If you've got other books, you can put them
Yeah,
on.
recommend
Other
stuff
funny
that
books.
we forgot. I'm sure there's a ton of funny books that we haven't read that you all might be reading. So so go on to ifanboy.com and tell the world. So my sides hurt from laughing so much.
Really? Was it that funny?
No, it wasn't that funny.
It was me, wasn't it?
It was you.
It was informational.
Yeah, it was.
Not always have to be funny.
I hope you weren't expecting more humor out of this.
So for more information about humor, head to your local library. 4, 3.
Hey, welcome to the iFanboy Pickly Podcast. That's where I was going.